Hello, my friend. Welcome back. Welcome back to this quiet space, this gentle space where we slow down together, where we breathe together, where learning English feels less like a test and more like a conversation between two people who really care about each other. I am so glad you are here today. I truly am. Because wherever you are right now, whether you are sitting at home on a soft sofa, or riding a bus through the city, or lying in bed at the end of a long, long day, I want you to know that you came to the right place. You made a good choice today. You chose to be here. You showed up. And showing up, my friend, that matters more than you know. That is the beginning of everything. Today, we are going to do something very special together. Today's lesson is called The Life of Mahatma Gandhi. Yes, the life of Mahatma Gandhi. And I want you to say that with me right now, just quietly to yourself. The life of Mahatma Gandhi. Feel how those words move. Feel the weight of them, the quiet dignity of them. Because this is not just a history lesson. This is not just an English lesson. This is something deeper. This is a lesson about who we can become when we believe in something greater than our fear, when we believe in something greater than our doubt, when we decide that the world we want to live in is worth working for, worth waiting for, worth becoming. But before we go anywhere, before we take a single step on this journey together, I want you to just breathe for a moment, right now. Breathe in slowly, hold it gently, and breathe out. Good, just like that. Because in this lesson, in every lesson we share on this channel, we take our time. There is no rush here. There never is. This channel, Motivate to Speak, was built on one simple, beautiful idea, that English is not something to be afraid of. English is something to grow into, slowly, gently, the way a plant grows toward the sun, not because someone is pushing it, not because someone is threatening it, but because something inside it, some quiet, persistent force, wants more light. So today, we grow together. Now, my friend, before we talk about Gandhi, I want to talk about you for a moment. Yes, you, because I know something about you. I know that you have been working hard. I know that sometimes listening to English feels a little heavy, like you are carrying a bag that is just a little too full. Maybe you miss a word. Maybe a sentence goes by too fast, and before you can catch it, it is already gone. And you think, I should have understood that. I should be better at this by now. And then that small voice inside you says something unkind. It says, maybe I am just not good enough for this. Maybe English is for other people, for people who are smarter, or who started earlier, or who have more time, not for me. I want you to hear me very clearly when I say this. That voice is wrong. That voice is not telling you the truth. That voice is fear, just fear. And fear, my friend, is exactly what we are going to talk about today. Because the story of Mahatma Gandhi, the story we are going to explore slowly and gently together, is really and truly a story about what happens when an ordinary person, a simple, quiet, sometimes frightened ordinary person, decides not to let fear make the decisions anymore. So let us begin. Let us begin slowly. Let us begin together. The name Gandhi. Let's start right there. Gandhi. Say it gently. Gandhi. Gandhi. In the Hindi language and in many Indian languages, the name Gandhi comes from a word connected to grocers, to people who sold spices and goods in local markets. It is a family name, a working name, a name that carries the smell of earth and spice and everyday life. And I think that is beautiful, because Gandhi, the man the whole world came to know, was never trying to be above ordinary life. He was always trying to be part of it, to live inside it, to understand it from the ground up, not from above. Mahatma Gandhi was born on October 2nd, 1869. October 2nd, 1869. Let's say that year slowly together. 1869. Good. He was born in a small coastal town in western India called Porbandar. Porbandar. Porbandar, a town by the sea. And the sea, my friend, I think the sea mattered to him, even if he didn't know it yet. Because the sea teaches you something that very few things in life can teach you. It teaches you patience. It teaches you that things that seem impossible, enormous, endless, overwhelming from where you are standing, can still be crossed, one wave at a time, one step at a time, one breath at a time. His full name at birth was Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. Let's not rush through that. Let's really say it. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. Each part has meaning. Mohandas means servant of the enchanting one in Sanskrit. Karamchand was his father's name, and Gandhi, of course, was the family name. But the title that the whole world came to know him by, that title was not given to him at birth. It was not given to him by a government or a committee or a prize. It was earned, slowly, painfully, through years of devotion and sacrifice and love and failure and getting back up. The title Mahatma. Let's talk about that word, Mahatma. Mahatma. In Sanskrit, it means great soul. Great soul. Two simple words, great soul. A great soul. Not a great warrior, not a great general, not a great king with armies and palaces. A great soul. Think about that for a moment. Think about what it means for a whole civilization, hundreds of millions of people, to look at one person and say quietly, honestly, from the bottom of their hearts, that is a great soul. That is someone whose spirit is larger than most, larger than anger, larger than revenge, larger than pride. That title was given to him by the people of India, not by a government, not by a university, by ordinary people, farmers with dirt under their fingernails, teachers in small village schools, women carrying water on their heads in the pale early morning, children watching from doorways with wide, curious eyes, ordinary people who looked at this quiet, thin man in simple white cloth and felt something they could not always put into words, but they felt it deeply, somewhere in the chest, somewhere in the soul, and they called him Mahatma, and the name stayed because true names always stay.
Now let me take you back to the beginning, because before Gandhi became Mahatma, he was just a young man. And young men, as you know, are sometimes afraid, are sometimes uncertain, are sometimes not sure who they are or what they are supposed to become or why any of it matters. Mohandas was the youngest child in his family. His father, Karamchand, was a local government official. His mother, Putlibai, was a deeply religious woman, a woman of tremendous inner strength. The home he grew up in was filled with the gentle rhythms of prayer, of simplicity, of devotion to something beyond daily life. His mother used to fast regularly. Do you know that word? Fast? F-A-S-T? To fast means to choose not to eat for a period of time as a spiritual practice, as a way of disciplining the body and strengthening the mind and the heart. Young Mohandas watched his mother do this. He watched her willingly choose difficulty for something she believed in. He watched her look at discomfort and say, I am stronger than this. I choose this. And that image stayed inside him like a seed planted in rich soil, waiting for the right season to grow.
When he was 13 years old, he was married. Yes, 13. His wife's name was Kasturba. Kasturba. She was also 13. This was the custom in that place and time. Arranged marriages between very young people. We look back at that now with different understanding, but what is remarkable, what is truly moving, is what grew between Mohandas and Kasturba over the years. What began as a custom became something deep and rare and real, a partnership that would carry both of them through prison walls and political storms and exile and grief and love. Kasturba was as brave as her husband, as steady, as committed, and Gandhi himself said many times that he would not have become who he was without her. Now, let's pause here for a moment, because this is our first practice cycle together, and I want you to relax completely. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears. Unclench your jaw. Soften your hands. Breathe in and breathe out. Good, because we are going to practice some English phrases together now, slowly, gently, and with full kindness toward yourself. Repeat slowly after me now. He was born by the sea. Say it again. He was born by the sea. One more time. He was born by the sea. Beautiful. Now try this one. Take a breath first. His mother taught him to be strong. Again. His mother taught him to be strong. Once more. His mother taught him to be strong. Good, very good. And now say it with me with a little more feeling this time. He became a great soul. He became a great soul. Yes, that is it. Just like that. You just spoke English with heart, not with panic, not with the desperate need to be perfect, with heart. And that, my friend, is how language becomes yours. That is how it stops being a foreign, difficult, intimidating thing and starts being a part of you, a part of how you think, a part of how you feel, a part of who you are. Let us continue our journey together. At the age of 19, Mohandas Gandhi left India to study law in London, England. Imagine that for a moment. A young man from a small coastal town in India, boarding a ship, crossing the ocean, arriving in one of the most powerful and busy and overwhelming cities in the world. Everything was different. The food, the weather, the clothing, the pace of life, the faces in the streets, the color of the sky in winter. He must have felt very small, very alone, very far from everything familiar and safe. And here is where I want to say something important to you, something I want you to hold close to your heart for the rest of this lesson and maybe for the rest of today, because I think you will recognize this feeling, even if your life has never taken you across an ocean. The feeling of being in a new world, of not quite belonging yet, of trying to speak a language that does not yet feel like yours, of trying to understand people who seem so confident, so easy, so natural in a world that still feels a little foreign and difficult for you. Gandhi felt that. He felt it deeply, and he did not pretend otherwise. In London, he struggled. He was shy. He was quiet. He was not a natural speaker, not a natural leader, not the kind of person who walked into a room and immediately owned it. He was a young man from a warm climate trying to make sense of a cold one, trying to eat food that was strange to his tongue, trying to be understood in a language he was still learning to carry inside his body, not just in his head. And yet, he stayed. He kept going. Day after day, he went to his classes. He sat in libraries surrounded by books. He walked through London streets in the gray weather, thinking, learning, growing, not loudly, not in great dramatic leaps, but persistently. And that word, persistently, is a beautiful English word I want you to keep with you today. Persistently. To do something persistently means to keep doing it, even when it is hard, even when progress feels invisible, even when the voice inside you says, "This is too much for me." Persistent. Keep that word close. He passed his law examinations. He returned to India. He tried to practice law. And here, something unexpected and humbling and deeply human happened. He failed. He was too shy to speak in court. His first case, his very first case as a lawyer, he stood up in front of the judge and he could not speak. His mind went completely blank. His voice disappeared. He sat back down. He lost the case. He felt humiliated and small, and like perhaps he had made a terrible mistake choosing this profession. My friend, I want you to sit with that image for a moment. Please sit with it. The man who would go on to change the course of a nation, who would stand face to face with empires without flinching, who would inspire hundreds of millions of people across the world to believe in something better. That man once stood in a small courtroom and could not find his voice, could not speak a single word. Does that feel familiar to you? Have you ever stood somewhere, a classroom, a meeting, a conversation in English, where you wanted to speak and the words just would not come? Where everyone around you seemed so comfortable and fluent and ready, and you felt frozen? I want you to remember this moment in Gandhi's story, because the voice he lost that day in that courtroom was not gone forever. It was not proof that he was not good enough. It was just waiting. It was developing inside him, in the quiet, in the difficulty, in the failure. His voice was growing. And yours is growing too, right now. Even as you listen, even as you struggle, it is growing. Now let me take you to a moment that changed everything. A moment that is one of the most cinematic, most powerful, most human moments in the entire story of Gandhi's life. A moment I want you to see clearly in your mind as I describe it, slowly, with full detail, with full feeling. The year is 1893. Gandhi is 23 years old. He has traveled to South Africa to work on a legal case for an Indian merchant. South Africa, a country far from India, a country at that time under British colonial rule, a country with very strict racial laws, laws that said certain people were less than other people, laws written in ink but felt in the flesh every single day by the people they targeted. One evening, Gandhi boards a train. He has a first-class ticket. He has paid for his seat. He is wearing a suit. He is sitting quietly in his compartment, reading, perhaps, or thinking, doing nothing wrong, simply existing. A white passenger sees him and complains to the train conductor. A white man complains that he does not want to share his train compartment with an Indian man. The conductor comes to Gandhi. He tells Gandhi quietly, firmly, with the tired politeness of someone who enforces unjust rules all day long. He tells Gandhi to move to a lower-class carriage. Gandhi looks at him and refuses. He says, calmly, but without any fear in his voice, "I have a first-class ticket. I have a right to be in this seat." The conductor calls an officer. The officer tells Gandhi again, "Move to the third class." Gandhi says no, and then they remove him from the train. They physically take him and his luggage and put them on the platform of a train station called Petermaritzburg, Peter-to-Maritzburg, in the cold, in the dark, in the middle of the night, and the train pulls away, and Gandhi is alone. And there, my friend, on that cold, dark, empty platform, something happened inside him. Something shifted. Something cracked open. He could have left. He could have been broken by that humiliation. He could have accepted the world as it was, hardened his heart, and gone home. Many people would have. Many, many people do. Because it is easier to adjust to injustice than to fight it. Because fighting is exhausting. Because the world is large and heavy, and sometimes it seems like nothing we do will move it. But instead, he sat with it. He sat in the cold darkness and he thought. He did not drink. He did not rage. He sat and he thought. He thought about what had just happened to him. He thought about what it meant to be thrown off a train for the color of your skin. He thought about the thousands and thousands of Indian people living in South Africa under these laws every single day. People who had been thrown off much worse things than trains. People who had no legal training, no education in the language of the powerful, no idea how to fight back. And something inside him made a decision, not loudly, not with a declaration, quietly, in the dark, alone. He decided to stay. He decided to fight, not with weapons, not with anger, not by becoming what he was fighting against, but with truth and with love, with what he would later call satyagraha. Let's say that word together. Sat-ya-gra-ha. Satyagraha. It is a Sanskrit word. Satya means truth. Agraha means holding firmly to something. So satyagraha means holding firmly to truth. Some people translate it as truth force. Some say soul force. The power of love and nonviolence as a way of changing the world. Not as weakness, not as surrender, as the most powerful force a human being can access. That cold train platform, that moment of being thrown into the dark, that became the seed of a movement that would eventually shake an empire and change the world. Now I want to pause again for our second practice cycle, because we have just been through something powerful together. And after something powerful, we breathe. We let it settle inside us. We make it ours. Take a breath in, hold it gently for just a second, and release. Repeat slowly after me now. He refused to give up his seat. Say it again. He refused to give up his seat. One more time. He refused to give up his seat. Good. Now this one. Take a breath first. He sat alone in the cold, and he made a decision. Again, he sat alone in the cold, and he made a decision. Once more, he sat alone in the cold, and he made a decision. Beautiful. And now, say it with me, with everything you have. He chose truth over fear. He chose truth over fear. Yes, feel that. Feel those words in your mouth. He chose truth over fear. And you know what I want to say to you right now? You are doing the same thing. Every single time you press play, every single time you stay, even when it feels difficult, every single time you try again, you are choosing truth over fear. You are choosing growth over comfort. And that, my dear friend, is brave. That is so quietly, genuinely brave. Let us continue. Gandhi spent 21 years in South Africa, 21 years, from 1893 to 1914. And in those long, difficult, transformative years, He developed everything that would later make him who he became: his philosophy, his methods, his understanding of how suffering works, his relationship with his own fear, his relationship with love as a political force. He organized the Indian community in South Africa. He fought discriminatory laws through legal channels and through campaigns of nonviolent protest. He was imprisoned more than once. He walked into courtrooms that did not want him there. He wrote articles for newspapers. He built community farms called ashrams, where people lived simply and worked together and practiced nonviolence, not just as a tactic, but as a way of being in the world. He learned something in those years that sounds simple when you first hear it, but is one of the most difficult things a human being can ever truly learn. He learned that you can love your enemy. And let me spend a moment with this, because I think it is relevant to you, not in a political way, but in a deeply personal way. When we are learning something difficult, when we are trying to grow into a language that doesn't yet feel like ours, there is a kind of enemy we carry inside us. That voice. That voice that says, you made a mistake. That voice that says, everyone noticed. That voice that says, you will never be good enough. That voice that has, perhaps, stopped you from speaking more times than any external obstacle ever has. Gandhi would say, that voice is not your enemy. That voice is fear. And fear deserves not your hatred, but your compassion. Because fear comes from love. Fear of failure comes from love of success. Fear of embarrassment comes from love of dignity. Fear of not being understood comes from a deep, real desire to connect. So instead of fighting that voice, instead of hating yourself for feeling it, you can look at it gently and say, I understand where you come from. I appreciate that you are trying to protect me. But I am going to take a step forward now, and you can come with me if you want, but you are not driving. That, my friend, is Gandhi's lesson applied to learning English, and it is one of the most powerful things you can do. He learned that you can love your enemy, that you can resist injustice without hating the person who is being unjust, that the person enforcing a cruel system is also trapped inside it, also diminished by it, also capable of change, that violence always begins in the heart, and so does peace. And if you want to change the world outside you, you must first be willing to change the world inside you. He also learned something profound about the nature of suffering. He learned that suffering, when you choose it willingly, when you step toward it rather than away from it, when you look it in the eye and say, I am not going to let you make me into something smaller or meaner or more afraid than I already was, that kind of suffering has a strange, almost mystical power. It moves people. It speaks to something deep in the human heart. It opens doors that no amount of shouting or force or argument can open. I want to say one more thing here because I think it matters for you as a learner. Gandhi chose to make his suffering visible. He did not hide his fasting or his imprisonment. He let people see it, not for sympathy, but because sometimes when someone else is willing to bear difficulty openly for something they believe in, it gives the rest of us permission to admit that we too are struggling, that we too are working through something hard, that we too are carrying something heavier than we want people to know. So here, in this lesson, I want to give you that permission. Your learning is difficult sometimes. Your progress feels invisible sometimes. Your confidence wavers sometimes. That is real. That is allowed. And it does not mean anything is wrong with you. It means you are doing something genuinely hard, and you are doing it anyway. And that, like everything Gandhi did, is something to be honored. Now let me take you into the second great cinematic story of Gandhi's life. And this one is perhaps even more beautiful than the train platform, because it does not involve just one man in the dark. It involves a whole nation and an ocean and something as simple and ancient as salt. The year is 1930. Gandhi is 60 years old. India is still under British colonial rule. The British Empire controls the country. And one of the many ways it controls India is through what are called the salt laws. Let me explain this slowly because it's important to really understand it. Salt, common salt, the kind you put on your food, the kind every human body on Earth needs to survive. The British colonial government had made it illegal for Indian people to make or collect their own salt. Indians could not walk to the ocean, which surrounded their country on 3 sides, and pick up salt. They had to buy salt from the British, and they had to pay a tax on it, a salt tax. Think about that for a moment. Salt, something that comes from the earth, something the ocean gives to every shore in the world without being asked, something no human being invented or created. And the empire said, "This belongs to us. You must buy this from us. You must pay us for the right to season your food." Gandhi looked at this law and he saw something brilliant in its cruelty. He saw that this one small law about something as universal and humble as salt could become a symbol of everything, a symbol of every way that a powerful empire reaches into ordinary life and takes something that was never theirs to take. He decided to challenge this law, not with armies, not with weapons, not with any kind of violence, with a walk. He announced that he was going to walk to the sea, to walk to the coast, to pick up salt from the ocean with his own bare hands, in full deliberate defiance of the British law. He called it the Salt March. He invited anyone who agreed with him to come. He said no one had to march, no one was forced, but anyone who wanted to was welcome to walk beside him. He began walking on March 12, 1930, with 78 followers, 78 people, not an army, not even a large crowd, just 78 people walking through the Indian countryside toward the sea for 240 miles. 240 miles on foot, in the heat, along dusty roads, through villages and fields and ancient landscapes. And as they walked, something extraordinary and deeply human happened. People came out of their homes and villages to watch, and then they did not just watch, they started walking too. Day after day, as Gandhi and his group passed through town after town, more and more people fell in beside them. Farmers, teachers, mothers carrying children on their hips, old men who walked slowly but would not stop, young people who had been waiting for exactly this kind of moment without quite knowing it. They saw this small, thin, 60-year-old man with his simple walking stick and his white cloth, walking steadily, peacefully, without hurry, and something woke up in them. Something old and deep and necessary said, "If he can do this, so can I. If he is not afraid, I do not have to be afraid either. If he will walk, I will walk beside him." By the time Gandhi reached the coast 24 days later, thousands of people were walking with him. Thousands. The world's press was watching. Photographers and journalists had been following the march from the beginning. Newspapers across the globe carried the story. The image of this one small man walking peacefully toward the sea spread to every country, every language, every heart that was paying attention. On April 6, 1930, Gandhi reached the coastal village of Dandi. Dandi. He walked to the edge of the water. He looked at the ocean, and he bent down, and he picked up a small handful of salt from the sea. Such a small gesture, such an ancient gesture. A human being picking up something the earth freely gives, something that costs nothing and belongs to everyone. And with that one small gesture, the British Empire trembled, not because of weapons or armies, but because of the truth of it, because of the quiet love in it, because of the unshakable dignity of it. Because sometimes the most powerful thing a person can do is the simplest, most human thing possible, done with full conviction and full peace. Let me pause here again for a third practice cycle, because this story is in you now, and I want to help you carry it out with you in English, in your voice, in your body. take a breath in, slow and full and real, and let it go. Repeat slowly after me now. He walked to the sea. Say it again. He walked to the sea. One more time. He walked to the sea. Good. Now this one. He picked up salt with his own hands. Again. He picked up salt with his own hands. Once more. He picked up salt with his own hands. And now say it with me. One small act can change the world. One small act can change the world. Yes, say that one again. One small act can change the world. And you know what I want to tell you? The small act of you listening right now, the small act of you practicing these phrases, the small act of you choosing to improve, to grow, to not give up, those are small acts that are changing something. Not the world, perhaps, but something closer and just as real. They are changing you, and you changing yourself. That, in time, changes everything around you. Let us go deeper. Gandhi returned to India from South Africa in 1914, and in the years that followed, he became the heart and the voice and in many ways the conscience of India's movement for independence from British rule. But I want to spend some time with how he did it, not just what he achieved, but how he lived. Because how Gandhi lived is in many ways more important than what he accomplished. He dressed simply. He wore a simple white cloth called a dhoti, just a piece of cloth wrapped around his body. No expensive suit, no hat, no imported jacket. He spun the cloth himself on a small spinning wheel called a charka. He wanted to look like the poorest person in India. He wanted the poorest farmer, the most forgotten woman, the most overlooked child, to look at him and feel seen, to feel that their leader was not above them, not better than them, but one of them. He ate simply, 2 or 3 small meals a day, mostly fruit and vegetables and goat's milk. He fasted regularly, not as performance, not to make headlines, but as a spiritual discipline, as a daily reminder that the spirit must be stronger than the body's comfort, that what we believe in must be stronger than what we crave. He traveled always in 3rd class on trains, not because he could not afford 1st class, because he chose not to, because 3rd class was where ordinary people sat, and Gandhi wanted to sit with them, to hear their conversations, to feel the heat and the crowding and the reality of their daily lives, to stay connected not to power, but to people. And he listened. More than almost anything else, Gandhi was a listener, a truly extraordinary listener. He sat with people in villages and in prisons and in dusty fields, and he listened with his whole self. The farmer who could not pay his debt, the woman whose son had been taken, the child who had never been to school. Gandhi listened, and he remembered, and he carried those stories inside him when he stood before the powerful. This is something I want you to think about in your English learning and in your life. Listening is a form of power, real listening, not the kind where you are planning your next sentence while the other person is still speaking, not the kind where you only hear what you already agreed with, but deep, patient, open listening, the kind that says, I am here, I am present, I want to understand. In English, we have a phrase for someone who does this well. We say they are a good listener. And being a good listener is one of the most powerful things a person can be. In English, in life, in love. Now, let me talk about something that I find deeply moving in Gandhi's story. And this is about failure, about the times things went wrong, about the painful, public, necessary moments when everything seemed to fall apart. Because Gandhi was not perfect, he would be the first to say so, and he often did. He made real mistakes. He had blind spots, things he couldn't see clearly enough, even with eyes as open as his. And he knew this, and he spent his entire life trying to keep learning, to keep growing, to keep being honest with himself, even when it was painful to look.
In 1922, there was a moment that broke his heart. The nonviolent movement he had spent years building, that extraordinary wave of peaceful resistance, briefly erupted into violence. A group of protesters attacked a police station in a small town called Charichara. Policemen were killed. The building was burned. And Gandhi, when he heard this, did something that surprised everyone and frustrated many. He called off the entire campaign, the entire national movement. He said, "I would rather stop everything than continue on a foundation of violence." And then he fasted. He took on suffering as a form of personal responsibility for what had happened, not because he had ordered it, not because it was his fault in the direct sense, but because he was the leader. And the leader, he believed, carries the whole movement inside himself. If the movement falls short of its own values, the leader must feel that fully, must not look away from it.
His own supporters were angry. They felt betrayed. They thought, we were gaining momentum. We were becoming powerful. Why have you stopped us? Why now? And Gandhi said something quietly devastating. He said, if we win with violence, we have lost something more important than any political victory. We have lost our soul. My friend, I want you to sit with that. There are so many times in life when we feel close to something we want, close to the goal, and something inside whispers, just this once, take a shortcut, cut a corner, compromise something you said you believed in, just get there, just win. And Gandhi said no. He said how we get there matters as much as where we arrive, that the path shapes us as much as the destination, that you cannot build a free nation on violence without carrying the cost of that violence forever. And I want to add something to that, for you, directly. You cannot build a confident English speaker on shame. You cannot learn language well when you are afraid of being laughed at. You cannot grow into fluency while you are punishing yourself for every imperfect sentence. Learning belongs to the gentle, to those who make space for mistakes, who say, that was good, now try again, keep going. This is why we speak slowly here. This is why we breathe. This is why we repeat. Because real growth is always gentle. Real growth is always kind. Now, let us have our fourth practice cycle. And this time, I want you to feel it. Put your hand on your chest if you want to. Feel your heartbeat. Feel yourself alive and present and genuinely learning. Take a breath in, long and slow. Hold for just a moment. Release completely. Repeat slowly after me now. He stopped because he believed in peace. Say it again. He stopped because he believed in peace. Once more. He stopped because he believed in peace. Good. Now this one. The way we do things matters as much as what we do. Again, the way we do things matters as much as what we do. Take a breath, then say it with me. I am learning with patience and with love. I am learning with patience and with love. Yes, say that one again, just for yourself. I am learning with patience and with love. Because you are. You truly are. And it is working. Even if you cannot always feel it working, it is working. Let us continue. After years of campaigns and imprisonments and marches and hunger strikes and negotiations and fart breaks and small, quiet miracles, India finally gained its independence from British rule on August 15th, 1947. August 15th, 1947. Independence Day. A day that hundreds of millions of people had dreamed of across generations. A day of grief transformed into joy. A day when something impossible finally became real. But Gandhi was not celebrating in the way the world expected.
He was not in Delhi, where the official celebrations were happening, where the new flag was being raised, where speeches were being made. He was in Calcutta, in a city that was tearing itself apart with violence. Because alongside independence came something called partition, the division of the land into two separate nations, India and Pakistan. And in the chaos of that division, enormous violence broke out between Hindu and Muslim communities. People who had lived as neighbors, who had shared markets and streets and festivals, were killing each other, burning each other's homes. A terrible, heartbreaking, preventable storm of violence. And Gandhi, who had given his entire life to the idea that people could live together with dignity, who had dreamed of an independent India that belonged to everyone, walked through Calcutta, through the middle of the violence, unarmed, alone, meeting people in the streets, in their homes, in the hospital beds, listening to their grief, crying with them. And then he fasted again. He told people he would not eat until the violence stopped. He sat with the weight of all of it, all the pain and fear and hatred, and he refused to add more pain or fear or hatred to it. And the violence in Calcutta stopped because of one man, one thin, exhausted, 77-year-old man in a piece of white cloth, walking through a burning city with nothing but love and truth and a refusal to give up on people. On January 30th, 1948, Gandhi was assassinated. He was 78 years old. He had lived a long and extraordinary and exhausting and beautiful life. And as he fell, he spoke the name of God. He fell with his hands pressed together in namaste, in respect, in love, even at the end, especially at the end. And the whole world wept. People in countries that had never met a single Indian person wept, because something they had believed in, something the world needed to believe was still possible, had been taken away. And yet, you cannot kill an idea. You cannot shoot a principle. You cannot assassinate love.
Yes. Say that one more time. I am brave enough to keep going. Because you are. You really genuinely are. And I am proud of you for being here today. My friend, we have been on a long and beautiful journey together. From a small coastal town called Porbandar, to the gray streets of London, to a cold train platform in the middle of a South African night, to a long, dusty, extraordinary march toward the sea, to a burning city where one old man walked without weapons through the fire. And back here, back to you, back to this moment. We have talked about a life that was full of difficulty and beauty in equal measure, a life that showed the world something it needed to see, that an ordinary person, a shy person, a person who once could not speak in a courtroom, a person who was thrown off a train in the dark, that person can become someone who changes history, not by being fearless, but by being afraid and going forward anyway, not by being perfect, but by being honest and persistent and full of love. And we have practiced English together, not perfectly, not mechanically, but gently, humanly, the way language is always meant to be learned, in story, in feeling, in repetition that nourishes rather than numbs, in pauses that belong not to uncertainty, but to wisdom. I want to say something to you now, and I want to say it not as a teacher, not as a host of a YouTube channel, but as someone who genuinely, truly believes in you. Because I do. I believe in every person who finds this channel and stays, who plays the lesson again in the morning while the coffee is brewing, who repeats the phrases quietly on the way to work, who one day, in a shop or a meeting or a moment they didn't expect, opens their mouth and the English comes out with a little more ease than before, and smiles. Just a small, private smile, but completely real.
Gandhi's ideas are still alive in every person who chooses conversation over conflict,
in every student who keeps trying, in every act of quiet, daily, unnoticed human kindness, in every moment someone decides to be patient instead of cruel. He is still walking in all of us who try to do the right thing, even when the right thing is slower and harder and less certain than the wrong thing. Now, let us have our fifth and final practice cycle, our last one for today. And I want you to bring everything to this one. Be completely present. This one is not about Gandhi anymore. This one is about you. Take a breath, the deepest breath you have taken all lesson. Fill your lungs with it. Hold for just a moment and release. Let everything go. Repeat slowly after me now. Gandhi's story gives me strength. Say it again. Gandhi's story gives me strength. One more time. Gandhi's story gives me strength. Now this one. Every small step I take in English is a step toward my goal. Again. Every small step I take in English is a step toward my goal. Once more. Every small step I take in English is a step toward my goal. Take a breath and say it with me now. I am brave enough to keep going. I am brave enough to keep going.
That smile is everything. That smile is what every single lesson on this channel is built toward. Gandhi once said something that I think about often. He said, "Be the change you wish to see in the world. Be the change you wish to see in the world." We hear this phrase so often that sometimes we stop really hearing it. So let's slow it down. Let's hold it gently and really look at it. Be the change. Not wait for someone else to make the change. Not demand the change from governments or teachers or other people before you start. Be it. Become it. Start here. Start with how you speak to yourself in the quiet moments when no one else is listening. Start with the patience you choose to give yourself when you make a mistake in English. Start with the decision to show up one more time for the language you are building, for the person you are slowly and beautifully becoming. Be the change. In English, in your life, in the way you treat yourself on hard days, in the way you keep going when everything in you wants to stop. You are doing that right now by being here, by listening to all of this, by trying, by not giving up. And that is enough, more than enough. It is everything. Before we close today, I want to invite you to do something small but meaningful. Leave a comment below this video. Just one comment. Tell me one thing from today's lesson that stayed with you. One phrase, one image from Gandhi's story, one sentence you repeated and felt something move inside you when you said it. It can be short. It can be simple. It can be imperfect English. It can be very imperfect English. In fact, I love imperfect English. I love it because it is honest, because it is brave, because it is language reaching towards something it hasn't quite caught yet. And that reaching, that effort, that willingness, that is the most beautiful thing there is. Write it down. Share it in the comments. Because when you write in English, even just one sentence, you are practicing, you are growing, and you are also doing something else. You are encouraging every other person who reads those comments. The person who was about to close the tab, the person who was thinking, maybe I'm not good enough for this. They see your comment and think, if they tried, so can I. You become a teacher just by being honest, just by trying. And if this lesson helped you today, if it gave you something real, something you can carry with you, please share it with someone else who is learning. A friend, a family member.
Someone who told you once that they wanted to improve their English, but didn't know where to start. Because the greatest gift you can give another learner is a safe place to try. And maybe this video can be exactly that for someone. Press the like button if you feel moved to. Not for me, for the person sitting somewhere right now who hasn't found this channel yet. Your like helps them find it. Your share might be the thing that changes their relationship with English. Your small act, like Gandhi bending down to pick up salt from the sea, might become something much larger than it looks. And please subscribe to Motivate to Speak, so that when we build the next lesson together, you are the first to know. So this gentle space stays yours, so you always have somewhere to come back to when English feels heavy, so you never have to feel alone in this. My friend, thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for sitting with this story today. Thank you for breathing through the hard parts. Thank you for repeating the phrases even when you were not sure. Thank you for trusting this space. Thank you for trusting yourself enough to try. Gandhi walked 240 miles to pick up a handful of salt. He did not know when he started walking whether it would work. He did not know whether the world would notice. He just walked. One step, then another, and the world followed. You don't need to walk 240 miles. You just need to show up tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. Slowly, persistently, with love for yourself and for the language you are building and for the person you are, day by day, becoming. One day, and I believe this with everything I have, one day you will be in the middle of a conversation in English, and you will realize you have forgotten to be afraid. You will just be talking, thinking in English, feeling in English, laughing in English. And then somewhere in the back of your mind, a small thought will come. It will say, I remember when this was so hard. And you will realize that somewhere along the way, in all these quiet lessons and gentle repetitions and small brave moments, you cross the ocean. Not all at once, but wave by wave, word by word, day by day. That day is coming, I promise you. Keep going. This is Smith from Motivate to Speak, and I will see you in the next slow listening lesson, my friend.